Discussing the state of the internet and free speech and expression as a whole contains some very dark and triggering themes. Your discretion is advised. There's a current ongoing battle regarding the imminent loss of free speech and freedom of expression, and I want to talk about the parts that you may not have heard of. First, I want to go back to the discussion that was always simmering angrily all the time in places where free speech used to be more protected. The discussion is more of an argument and is split into two groups: the group that says all speech and expression should be free, and the other group which says that certain speech and expression should never be allowed. In that argument, that sounds pretty cut and dry, but it isn't, and it's the reason that we're here now. The free speech group had some loud individuals in it who were framing discussions over losing free speech in such a way that others didn't understand that they were griping about the fact that they did have free speech and expression. It's just that whenever they exercised free will as humans, other people would push back against them if they didn't like what they saw. So some people who were fighting for free speech and expression were actually fighting for freedom from consequences. So this group does push back against speech that messes with their own free speech. So they claim that they're for free speech, but they're actually for their own speech. Meanwhile, the other group looked more oppressive to that group especially. They wanted to ban anything they thought went too far. The issue is that they didn't actually have a group-wide agreement on what was considered acceptable speech, or even unacceptable speech. So whenever this group tries to go off alone and be in peace with just them, they always fight each other. Because when you try to be fully exclusionary, trying to reach the facade of what the perfect person is, it starts out with calling what the majority of the group does disagree with, and then it goes from there to things that a lot disagree with, and then the things that some disagree with, and then suddenly you find that there isn't anything left. They claim that they're still for free speech, but they're only for their own speech. And the problem with that is, since they can't agree on what their group-wide views are, they just eat everyone they're against, and then they start eating each other. The truth about free speech and free expression is that in the past, when we didn't have the looming threat of our actual free speech and expression being taken over our heads like a dark cloud, that you have to allow all free speech and expression to keep it. You have to fight for your neighbor's right to say and express what they want to, because if you make it illegal for even one person to lead a life that you disagree with, it puts the way you live at risk as well. Freedom of speech and expression has never meant freedom from consequences. Even if you try to niche down and create your own chat group or website where everyone is mostly talking and acting the same way as you, you're going to find that there will always be someone who joins who is mostly in agreement with everything, but will one day say, I think this is going too far, and you're going to misunderstand and think that them saying they disagree means that they're not in favor of freedom of speech and expression. But that just isn't how being human works. Like it or not, you will never find anyone that fits perfectly in with what your ideal person mold looks like. Nobody fits cleanly in a label, and that's why political parties don't work. That's why any argument that splits a group into two doesn't work. You almost can't be black and white about things. It's shades of gray. And if you try to take apart a person until only the parts you like are left, that person is now a horrifying mass of viscera held on by life support, and they no longer want to be your friend. So why am I telling you this? You're probably looking at this situation and thinking it has nothing to do with you because you have misunderstood and thought this was only about pornography. That means the things that you can't do at work for risk of being fired. Example of things you typically can't do at work are cursing, like even light words like damn and hell. LGBT stuff is getting banned a lot. It's something that's really common to be not fine in the workplace. Nudity, regardless of whether it is in a sexual situation or not. Clothing that shows a lot of skin or is too tight, especially on women. Romance, like kissing, public displays of affection. Political discussions, especially if it's about a political party that your boss isn't in. religious discussions, especially if it's not positively discussing your boss's religion. Violence, like depiction of any weapons, depiction of someone even slapping or punching someone, or even just someone sustaining even a slight injury. Tattoos and piercings, going against dress code, in whatever they deem as inappropriate music, drugs and alcohol, even if you're old enough to legally have those things. NSFW is basically anything that you're not able to do at work without risk of being fired. In this case, the risk is much higher than being fired. It is now even higher than being demonetized online, or cancelled, or banned off a website, or losing friends. You can go to jail. You can even lose your life. We have to fight back against this. I'm not over-exaggerating. I know there are some things that people think have to be censored, but the second any kind of limits on free speech and expression begins, the rest of your free speech and expression rapidly disappears as well. They're getting rid of VPNs. They're adding age verification to computer GPUs. They're adding verification to the places we communicate with our loved ones, people that you likely know worldwide who have no other way of contacting you. They're trying to require ID even to use Google Maps to make sure that they know where you are at all times. We cannot leave this alone. For anyone who is happy about this because people can't post weird porn of that ship I hate ever again, yay! Know that this is going to negatively affect your life far more than seeing that ship art that you refused to filter out ever will. You have to fight for freedom of speech and expression to be preserved, and learn how to avoid seeing things that you don't like online from now on. This is another reason why labels are so detrimental. Trying to make a one-word thing that describes something isn't helpful. NSFW encompasses all of the above, not just sexual content. But people think that an NSFW ban means only a ban of sexual content, not literally every single thing that they do on a daily basis in their lives. People may also misunderstand this and have a terrible brain-dead take, like thinking that I'm trying to get rid of certain social conventions. There are things in place that do make sense. Sometimes you need to wear more clothes. Sometimes it isn't the right time for cursing. Sometimes you're in a place where you really shouldn't use your reclaimed slurs, even though you have the ability to. Sometimes you should actually wear less clothes, like if you're at the beach. And defending free speech doesn't mean taking others' agency from them. It means that it would be inappropriate to do some of these things in certain places, like, for instance, a workplace. It wouldn't be right to do them at a funeral, but that doesn't mean your freedom is being taken from you. When you exercise your free will to post porn on, for example, a children's website like Roblox, that isn't you taking your freedom back, that's you taking away other people's agency. There are other appropriate places for sexual content, and other NSFW content, like cursing and drugs and all that stuff. There are reasons they aren't allowed everywhere, and it's okay that they aren't allowed everywhere. This does not mean that they're taking your free speech from you. But the issue is that we're seeing even art programs ban people from even drawing sexual content in private places where nobody but themselves would have otherwise seen it. Video game development software has been trying to censor how people write their own code for it sounding inappropriate or exclusionary, even though that is back-end stuff that people otherwise aren't going to see unless they're the developer. You're not going to see that unless you hack it or decompile the game. Websites are trying to tell grown adults that what they can and cannot see is up to them and is basically considered illegal. There are some people out there who actually waited until they were 18 years old to look at these things that were legal and okay for adults to see, just in time for it to suddenly be taken from them. Requiring identification would have been a good thing if it weren't for the fact that we know that the government has certain speech and expression that they want banned despite it being against the Constitution for them to do so. And then being able to track everything we do means they can show up and arrest us for bad wrong speech and thoughts. They are trying to ban private free speech and expression as well by tracking us. It isn't about banning porn, it's about banning all things that would get you fired if you did them at work. You aren't always at work. In fact, in the current state of the world, odds are if you're seeing this, you're likely unemployed right now. Yet you're being treated as if you are permanently clocked in. It isn't about protecting minors from seeing bad things, it's about controlling every person, regardless of their age, and losing access to all privacy. It would have been nice to not have minors in adult spaces anymore. If we could trust our governments, we wouldn't even be having this discussion right now. I've seen people fucking misunderstand this whole thing to be a right-wing versus left-wing war, when in reality everyone from all sides of every argument is suddenly starting to wake up and all turn their eyes towards those that are trying to control what we are allowed to do. I'm not religious anymore, but I used to be when I was a kid. In fact, I might have been up until I was 19 or maybe even 20. A lot of you might be Christian watching this, so maybe this example will help put things into better perspective. The main way people buy and sell things, Visa and MasterCard, are censoring things in such a way that if you don't fully comply with what they believe is okay free speech and expression, they will keep you from being able to buy and sell. There has been a push to try and only buy and sell with cards instead of cash and gold and other things because the government wants to have full control over what we're doing. I had the Bible read to me 3 times. Doesn't this sound familiar? It's not 100% the same as the Mark of the Beast, but doesn't that sound very similar? Very eerily similar? I know you have things you really don't agree with. I know you think getting rid of certain speech and expression will make the world a better place. But the people and things you hate and choices they make do not disappear just because they're illegal now. People just do that where you don't see. And they do things that used to be safe to do in ways that are now unsafe. Think about how banning alcohol went a good while back. It didn't stop people from getting it. Making things illegal doesn't get rid of people making and consuming that stuff. It just makes it more unsafe for them to have things that used to be legal. If you're still missing the point, we know alcohol and cigarettes are illegal for people under 21 to have. So what happens when you make anyone having them illegal? It makes it to where people who thought minors not being allowed to have them just don't care anymore. They know that their kids are already addicted to them anyway, so your kids end up in dark alleyways with people helping them and other adults that your kids shouldn't be around, by the way, get those things. Or worse, not even a dark alleyway, a building. Going off to secret places to do those drugs with adults that are strangers. Because it is illegal anyway, it makes it to where everything goes. If you still don't get it, basically, if they already know that they're screwed, if they're caught doing those drugs, having them, everything, then what's one more crime like giving drugs to minors? Now imagine everything getting banned. You know you're screwed no matter what you do, so a lot of people are going to do much worse things than just giving drugs to your kids. Your kids will find ways to get access to the things that are banned, especially when so many things are banned that it's impossible to protect them from everything. You'd literally have to go fully off-grid and drive out into the countryside where there's no cities or neighbors for thousands of miles and take all the technology away and take them away from their friends. You know what happened to my family when they tried to do that before I was born? They ended up in a religious cult where the preacher was fucking every woman because he said God told him to do that. He was even fucking his sister, who was actually mentally retarded. Clinically. Not me just using a word you don't like, but I mean like functionally and mentally retarded sister. She got pregnant, did you know that? You don't gain more freedom and protection by banning things. You willingly give yourself over to slave drivers. They want us in shackles. They want us unable to organize. I know you have things you want gone, but you need to fight for all free speech and expression. Think of it like this: if it isn't about making your neighbor happy, think of this as a way for you to keep your own happiness and freedoms. If you still don't get it, let's try again. The person currently controls most likely on your side and thinks a lot of things you hate need to be banned, which is why you're still for it. But what if the other team was in control? They would be taking away your Bible. Does this make you get it now? I have seen people endlessly gripe about how the right does things and how oppressive and exclusionary the right can be, but I have also seen the left do it too. I recently, a few weeks ago, saw a video where they were talking about how they wish everyone had a voter card that showed who they voted for, and if you voted Republican, you suddenly lose access to tons of your rights just because of how you voted. Stuff like certain health care, and the ability to buy contraceptives, and the ability to get your 13-year-old daughter an abortion because her uncle raped her and she got pregnant. Things like that. Over 200,000 people watched the video, and thousands of people in the comments didn't see anything wrong with that. It's unconstitutional to take other people's rights away or to be discriminatory. They're upset because the right holds the whip right now. But why is it suddenly okay when the left holds the whip? No one should be whipping anyone. How is this hard to understand? If you're still not getting it, this fight is not a Republican versus Democrat fight. It's not a Christian versus atheist fight. It's not a fandom fight. It's not a ship war. This fight is not the people versus themselves. It's all of us fighting together against the rest of the governments of the world, as well as us fighting the payment processors that control our money and what we all are allowed to even do in private. It's about fighting fascism. Your Republican or Democrat leader did not matter. It didn't matter who got in there. The same goal would have been reached. They're trying to do the same thing. It's just painted over with a different color and used with different speech said in different ways. We need to not be fighting each other right now. We need to all band together, hand in hand, and stop this before it's too late. So, are we finally on the same page? If you're still saying things like, yeah, free speech and expression is good unless it's, then we aren't. And I hope the people who are mad at the people who still don't understand don't celebrate when they finally do understand when it's too late and all gone.